evening, everybody. My name is Todd Thielman for the 1st District of the Cook County Board of Review for Commissioner Tammy Wendt. Unfortunately, she had some family emergency. She cannot attend tonight, but we have some other dignitaries here that I'll introduce in 1 minute. I appreciate everyone coming here tonight. Property taxes are forefront in everybody's mind of what we're doing. How do we appeal them? How could government help you with appealing it? So we're going to give that presentation tonight. First of all, I want to introduce the Hanover Township Assessor, Kaja Munadin, and go ahead and take it away, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to virtual workshop on how to appeal your property taxes assessment, hosted by Commissioner Tammy Wendt of Cook County Board of Review, Kevin Morrison of Cook County District 15, Supervisor Brian McGuire, and myself. And a little bit about me. I'm a newly elected township assessor. Prior to getting elected for the township assessor, I was a trustee for 5 years. And by profession, I'm a licensed civil engineer. I've been working with the Water Reclamation District from the last 21 years, involved with the stormwater management and process facilities design and construction management. So this is about me, and my office and I will be always available to you. If you need anything, you can always reach me through the email and through the township portal. And now I wanted to introduce Commissioner Kevin Morrison of Cook County. Commissioner.
Thank you so very much, Assessor, and good evening, everyone. I want to thank Board of Review Commissioner Tammy Wendt, as well as Assessor Munadin for joining us this evening. I'm the Cook County Commissioner. I represent the Northwest Suburbs, which encompasses all of Hanover Township. My office is always available to assist in any constituent issues, so please never hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to help. I've said from day one that our residents should not pay a penny more than what is due in property tax, and so I hope that you get a lot of useful information during today's discussion. And I don't want to hold the floor for too much because there's a lot of important information that's about to be shared. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Commissioner Wendt's Chief of Staff, Todd Thielman. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And please never hesitate to reach out if we could ever be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Assessor. I really appreciate you being on here and being advocates for your constituents. It's really important that we together help facilitate these services for our constituents. So I really appreciate you being part of it and putting the highlight on how important it is. I know personally my salary is paid for with property taxes, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And I want to make sure that all the constituents within Cook County, not even just our district, but in all of Cook County, get a fair property tax assessment. So that's kind of our goal, and that's our North Star at the Board of Review. I battle internally with how to make property tax fun and exciting and present it to a public audience that doesn't put you to sleep. It's very hard. So I'm going to try to run through this presentation in about 20 minutes, so we leave some time for question and answers. We also have a chat function that you can use. We do have some Board of Review staff that are going to be answering those questions in the chat. So there's a couple ways that you can participate in this. You can either wait till the end and I'll run through questions. You can go to the chat. We'll give our contact information at the end of the presentation. So if you have some more personal things you want to talk about and you're not really comfortable talking about that in the setting like this, feel free to reach out. We are here. We're civil servants. We're here ready to help. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint. These could be as boring as heck, but I'm going to do the best to get some good information in your hands, get your brain thinking about what you need to do, and then we can help you along the way. All right. So what is the Board of Review? People say I want to appeal my taxes, and they get confused. Oh, appealing at the assessor, appealing at the Board of Review. I mean, they are two completely different agencies. So the Cook County Assessor is the agency that puts that first value on your piece of property. They're the ones that do a reassessment, and I'll go through that in a little bit. But if you don't like what they say, we are the appellant court for you. So if you don't like what the assessor has for a value, we are your first line of defense after the assessor. If you appeal at the Board of Review, we can reduce your assessed value if it's warranted based on the evidence. But you must file an appeal at the Board of Review for us to have jurisdiction to even look at it. So you can't just sit back and expect the Board of Review, or even the assessor for that matter, to to look at your property and see whether it's fairly assessed. You have to be proactive in that process. There's almost 2 million pieces of property in Cook County. The assessor can only do a third every year. And could you imagine the board of review? We got to do. We can only handle a significantly small portion of that. Even we did 223,000 appeals last year. It's probably around 13% of the properties that we saw an assessment for last year. You do not need to be an attorney to file your appeal. You do not need to hire an attorney to file your appeal. And I'm going to go through that, let you know how easy that is. So the potential benefits of appealing, the number one thing we want to look for is how can I save money? Appealing your taxes and getting a reduction in assessed value doesn't necessarily mean that you're automatically going to get a smaller tax bill. It really depends on what the taxing in your district are doing. If, for example, your assessed value stayed the same, but the taxing bodies needed more money to run their functions, your tax bill is going to go up. Even if if your assessed value was reduced, if the requirements of the taxing districts in your district require more money, your tax bill could still go up. So it's not always a one-for-one correlation, or very rarely is it a one-for-one correlation. When you file at the board of review, you get a possibility of multi-year savings. And what that really points to is when Hanover Park is a northern suburb. So it's in the northern tri, we call it for tax purposes. The northern suburbs of Cook County, the northern townships, are going to be reassessed next year. For example, if you file an appeal this year and you win the appeal, it's only good for this year because it's the last year of the triennial. So it's the third year. Next year, the assessor will go out and do their magic and run new numbers, and then we'll start the triennial session over again. So next year, if you file an appeal and you win, that appeal will carry over for 3 years. So what does that all mean? I say just file every year, file appeal every year. If there's evidence that you're overassessed, and I'll go into that detail a little bit more also. There is no fee to file at the board of review. You already pay for this service in your Cook County taxes. We will never file a fee. Anyone who says they're associated with the board of review and they try to collect money from you, they're scamming you. So never pay anyone that's a board of review representative, or even a county representative for that matter. No one should be taking any money. And we will not increase your assessment. That's one of the fears out there, is that if people think if they file an appeal, it's going to put a microscope on their property and the board of review is going to raise their assessment. It's not going to happen. We don't do that. We're either going to no change it or we're going to reduce it. So no risk there. So what is the triennial reassessment? As I pointed out earlier, it's about 2 million parcels in Cook County. The assessor can't do all 2 million parcels in 1 year. So this was a law that was created a long time ago where we broke the county up into 3 areas. The assessor will take an area every year. So this year is the Chicago reassessment year. So the whole city of Chicago is being reassessed this year. Next year will be the north suburbs, and the year after will be the south suburbs, and it just follows that pattern. The assessor uses what's called a mass appraisal system. So they take data from sales and rents and things like that to input in their algorithm, and it spits out values. Just by the nature of that, you can see how it could be problematic and not so perfect. When you have to do so many pieces of property, it's the only way to really do it. You can't send enough boots on the ground to go do them. So you have to use artificial intelligence to help you along the line. So the assessor does a good job of that. And for the most part, they do a pretty good job. But nobody knows their home or their property like the owner, like you. When the assessor does a mass appraisal and you don't agree with it, there's probably good reason you don't agree with it. You know what houses are selling for in your area. You know what rents are in your area. You know your area better than anybody. So you need to bring it to our attention, the Board of Review's attention, and say, hey, I don't think the assessor gave me a fair shake. I want you to look at it. And here's my evidence, if you have evidence to support your claim. And the Board of Review can take a micro analysis of it. We'll look at your house. We'll look at your block. We'll look at your neighborhood. We could take the time to do it because we are doing a lot less properties than the assessor. So we could take the time to really look at your property. One of the questions that people ask me, they say, hey Todd, I want to appeal my taxes. My taxes are way too high. I think my house is overvalued. And the first thing I say is, well, what do you think you could sell your house for? That's the first question I tell people to ask themselves. If their house is assessed at 280,000, but they think they can sell it for 300, well, then you really don't have grounds for an assessment, for a reduction, or even an appeal. I would say don't waste your time in that case. If it's a little closer in value and you think you're unfairly assessed, I mean, there's no fee to do it. There's no downside to do it. So go ahead and do it. But that's the first question I tell people to ask themselves. What do they think they could sell their property for? This is just a calendar of the reassessment year. So you can see the city of Chicago is in 2021. North is going to be 2022. And so on. And then those are the townships that are involved in each one. A lot of people don't realize that the city of Chicago is actually cut up into townships, and it's really just for tax purposes. So you'll recognize some of the neighborhoods, right? Lakeview and Hyde Park, but a lot of people don't realize there's just north, south, and west. Then you have Lakeview and Rogers Park, those neighborhoods, that I've heard of. But yeah, those are townships within the city. So what are the grounds for the appeal? For homeowners, and this is a homeowner-based presentation here, uniformity is the basis for appeals on about 95% of them. So those are, hey, why is my house assessed more than my neighbors? This isn't fair to me. It's not fair to my family. It's not fair. It's not fair. So what can you do to fight that on a lack of uniformity? I'll go into a little evidence that you can do on that in a minute. Probably the second most used one is recent purchase. So if your property was purchased in the last 3 years, and the assessed value is higher than what you paid for it, you have good grounds for an appeal. Recent purchase, you have to make sure that it's what's called an arm's length sale, meaning you can't have sold it, bought it from your son or bought it from your parents. It has to meet certain criteria. It has to be marketed for a certain amount of time. It can't be between family members. It can't be what they would call a sale under duress. So there's a couple of things that we would need to look at there to make sure that the sale is a good sale. Also, factual error. The assessor does have some bad data, and this goes back to, probably for decades, just things being done on paper and people not writing the correct thing down and then inputting that data into a data set somewhere, and it was incorrect. And this one really just came up recently for me. I had a young man that I met at an outreach in Cicero. He didn't understand why his 3-flat was taxed much higher than the three flats that are around him. So there's 4 buildings. They are identical. They're all built at the exact same time. And I bet if I look, they're probably all built by the same builder. So they're all the exact same. But for some reason, his square footage is 3,600 square feet. The other ones are like 2,400 square feet. I was helping him get his information for an appeal. He couldn't find a Plata survey. So I said, hey, you need to go get a Plata survey. And what he did was he found some old closing papers that had the correct square footage. So we were able to put that together with some satellite imaging of his property and the other 3 buildings around him. And we sent that off to the assessor, and the assessor is sending out a field team to fact check it. So a field team is going to go out there and actually take the measurements. And he's probably going to be due refunds for the last 3 years, because he can go back and get what's called certificates of errors, and he can get 3 years of those certificates of errors. So he's going to save a considerable amount of money going forward, but he's also going to collect money from years past when he overpaid. Incidentally, the other 3 buildings are all assessed fairly with the correct square footage. Nobody can give me a reason why his square footage was so high, and it's been that way for 10 years. This is the first time he ever really had help with figuring it out. So factual errors do happen. Another common reason for an error, there's some of these larger houses that when you walk in, there's a foyer, and you may have a loft in part of that area. A lot of times when the assessor was building that data set, they put that as 2 floors. So they put that airspace as living space. And it really isn't. It should not be included in the square footage. So I ran across that problem a couple times recently as well. In these cases, there was architectural drawings that were there to prove it. So all that was put in with the evidence. Those square footages were changed as well. One of the other grounds for appeal is vacancy. Think of these as act of God, unforeseen circumstances, fire, flood. One of our staff members had a fire last year on his house. It's a good thing that the property tax code allows this. If you're unable to live in your house, you can actually you can eliminate the property taxes for that time that you're out of your house due to fire, flood, or demolition or something like that. But it can't just be, hey, I want to demo my house because I want a bigger kitchen. It can't be your choice. It's got to be more of, like I said, an act of God. And then there's certain criteria that I'll go through to prove that. So what to include in your to support your residential appeal? If you're going to file an appeal based on uniformity, the big buzzword is I need to get comparables. I need to get comparables. You don't always need to get comparables. That's the assessor can help you get comparables. The board of review can help you get comparables. That's a big hurdle for a lot of people. It's very scary, I think, and confusing to go get comparables. What's a good comparable? You know, how far can I go away from my house? Do I need to stay on my block? It's really the angst of a lot of people trying to find the comparables. So if you don't provide any comparables, we're still going to run a comparable analysis of the board of review. So if you can't do it, if you're not getting any help doing it, if you don't want to go to the assessor and find comparables, if you submit your appeal, we'll find the comparables for you. We have a robust comparable system that we rely on. So you can imagine that as comparables come in, we also have to vet those as well. We can't just take comparables for their word. So we do look at every uniformity analysis through our comparable system as well. Sales is something that's, I wish it was a little better on our end. We rely on some other functionaries within the county to get us recent sales data. So we don't always have the most up-to-date data. That's where you could come in and help us with an appeal. If you have some good sales around you that are like your house, I would like you to include those with your appeal. Those are really important, just because I can't rely on, like I said, the other agencies to always give us timely information. And then vacancy, if we talk, we talked about flood, fire, disaster. The things that we would need as far as evidence is police reports, fire reports, dated photographs, and don't get hung up on dated photographs. You can just write the date on the picture. You just take a Sharpie, write the date. Things like occupancy permits, insurance claim information, building permits, things like that to show us. And then eventually an occupancy permit will tell us when you're able to move back in. So we would need that as well. There's a couple ways to file these appeals. You're like, that's great, Todd. All right, you gave me the foundation, but how do I do it? So you can do it the old fashioned paper way, and I'll show you that in a second. The assessor's office could help you either way as well. If you don't have access to a computer, you can go in the assessor's office and they can help you do this as well. So our website is cookcountyboardofreview.com. This is the first page that you'll see when you get up there. There's our commissioners, Commissioner Rogers, Wendt, and Kevin Argy. So this first thing you're going to do when you're going to get to this page is you can learn a little bit more about the agency. What do we do? Things like that. But if you want to get right to the nuts and bolts of it, go right to submit appeal. It's going to bring you to this screen. This is the second screen that you'll see after you hit submit appeal. What I want to talk to you now is about registering at the Board of Review and why that's important. Registration at the Board of Review, it gives you certain abilities and provides a better line of communication between the Board of Review and you. You can do this at any time. It doesn't have to be when your township is open. I realize Hanover Township is open right now. So you can do this right now. You can do it anytime though. Hanover Township is open until February 1st. So anything you file right now is open and it goes right into our working queue. When you register, what it does is it provides an account for you at the Board of Review. And this is an advantage because as we move along in the tax season, the tax year, you're going to get certain communications that are going to let you know where we're at. We're going to tell you when Hanover's opening, when Hanover's closing. We're going to tell you when a decision has been made. And you would go to your account to check your decision. We don't email your decision. We only tell you that a decision has been made. So then you'd go into your account, log in, and your decision would be in there. It also keeps a history of any appeals that you've ever filed with the Board of Review. So that's important too. It just gives you kind of a better picture of things, and you don't have to worry about losing information or losing your file folder that had your Board of Review decisions in the past. So again, boardofreview.com. If you have an issue or a problem registering on our website, you can always call our number. This is our general office number, 312-603-5542. Sometimes it goes to voicemail. Sometimes we have somebody who's able to pick it up. It really depends on what's going on that day. If we're up against a deadline for a township, you're probably going to get a voicemail because we're going to have so many calls. So just be patient. We try to return all calls within 24 hours. All right, so you hit submit appeal. You get to this page, log in, register. Obviously log in if you already had done this before. You can log in if you know your username and password. If you haven't, you'd hit register. It's going to take you to this page. Here's where you'd log in. If you don't remember your username and password, we don't have a fancy system that you could press a button, forgot username, forgot password. You actually have to physically call in to the same number, 603-5542, and they'll help you with your username and password. It's funny because when I started this job about 14 months ago, I had filed my property taxes on my own before that, but I wanted to check my own history. So I couldn't remember, of course. And I went in, I ended up having I had three accounts that I had set up sometime in the history of, owning property in Cook County. It's hard for me to say, you got to remember your login information. Please do. It makes it easier because we don't have that fancy system. If you're a new user, here you go. You'd register here. It's going to ask you to create your username and password. You're going to put your name and email, your address. It's going to ask you to confirm it. There's going to be a question that says, are you an attorney? Do not register as an attorney even if you are and you just want to file your own property taxes. Don't register an attorney. It makes it a little more confusing. If you are an attorney, you probably already know that. So that once you register, you'll come to the screen. You're going to submit an appeal. So it's the third option here. This is also where you go to check the status. You go to My Appeals to check the status. This screen, you can see down here, it says pre-registration townships and pre-file townships. Those would be populated with all the townships, but this was created before those were full. So right now there's nothing in there, but you'll see townships in there. Hanover is open right now. So Hanover would not be one of these towns that would be listed in there. Once you're open, you get pulled off this list. So the next screen would be right here. It's going to ask you, please select the type of appeal. And then there's a drop-down caret or menu here. Property overassessed is the only option. I don't know why this exists. Again, well, I did not create this website, but it's what we have to use right now. So property overassessed, that's the only reason you file an appeal anyways, because you think your property is overassessed. If you think your property is underassessed, you should probably hang up, get off the website. We don't need to know if your property is underassessed. You'd also put in your property index number here. That's the number that you would get off your property tax bill. A lot of you are probably all familiar with your PIN number, it's called. Again, check this box, you're not an attorney, and then check this box that says I'm not a robot. And that's going to get you to this next screen. And this is a confusing screen to some people, as we added this red text here, do not list comparables, because people started putting comparables in here. What this item is for is if your property is on two pins, and this happens not so much in the city, but you'll see it a lot in the northern suburbs, and probably a lot in Hanover. We'll see one piece of property that has more than one pin. The house straddles a property line. So here's where you'd put what we call associated pins. You'd put them in here. If you don't have any, if your property just has one pin, you just hit submit. It's going to take you to this next screen. This is Appellant Information. A lot of this is already in there that you'd already put in when you registered, but you need to put it in again. Your name, your address, your city, all the required, the red asterisks here, your phone number, your email, and confirm your email. And then just hit done. We're not going to send you emails or spam, or we don't sell your emails to anybody. So you're not going to get, hopefully the fear of that doesn't prevent you from registering. Now you can file at the Board of Review as a guest. You have less ability to communicate with the Board of Review if you file as a guest. You will not receive any emails. The emails sometimes have more information in them than the letter that gets mailed. And incidentally, people feel like they want to file as a guest because they don't have to give up their email address. But to file as a guest, you still have to give your email address up. So I don't see the advantage of it. I see much more advantage of registering with the Board of Review. This is an example of the second installment tax bill. I'm sure everyone knows this. This one's really important because it does have your exemptions on it, and it does have all your information as far as the state equalizer and the tax rates and things like that. So this is a really important bill to make sure you understand it. Also has all your taxing bodies on here. Where's my money going for property, for the property tax that I pay? Generally, you're going to find it's usually the school district, or 99%, it's the school districts that are the greatest recipient of your tax dollars. If you want to get crazy and you want to start looking for comparables, there's a couple tools out there that can do it that are provided by the county. The main one that we use in the office, we use this one a lot to check out the neighborhoods. It's kind of like a Google map view. It's cookcountyviewer.gov. You can go in there, launch that. It's free. You can search for property by pins or by addresses. Everything in the property tax world is public information. You can see your neighbor's property tax bills. You can see your neighbor's property tax bill history. You can see everyone's property tax information, from anywhere from, Barrington, New Trier down to Bloom townships. You can see everybody's information. Transparency is the key. And I mean, that's what makes this system, as fair as possible. You can also go to the assessor's website, and in their all forms and tools, they have a comparable property tool there as well. If you want to file a paper form, you can go to our boardofreview.com website. You would hit form. A complaint form will show up there, and you can print it out, and you got to mail it in. You can also go to the assessor's office. They will have paper forms as well. This is what the paper form looks like. This right-hand column is just like that area on the website where you do not want to list comparables. That's for associated pins if you had them. The most important part of this piece of paper is your PIN number, your name and address, and then your signature. Make sure you sign it. That gives us the jurisdiction to look at your appeal for you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on condos. These are a little different animal. Condo buildings have bylaws and association rules that spell out the percentages of interest for common areas and things like that. So condo appeals and townhome appeals, we take a little different approach to those. We have condo and townhouse specialists on our teams that look at condo. Some of the guidelines here, individual taxpayers can file appeals at the Board of Review. Attorneys can file appeals on behalf of property owners at the Board of Review. And that's the limit of it. There's what we call consultants out there that'll take your money and say they're going to appeal your property taxes. And they actually can at the assessor. The assessor has a different set of rules than the Board of Review. At the Board of Review, a consultant is not allowed. If we find consultants filing appeals, we close those appeals as not being filed correctly. So you're going to lose your ability to have your case heard. You need to be cognizant of your opening and closing dates of your township if you don't register or pre-file. Getting on our emailing list, or I'll give you a text number in a few minutes. You can get dates from us. I'm sure the assessor also has on their websites when they're opening, and there's some communication from even the commissioner's offices that will tell you when your township is opening. You need to file the appeal on your behalf. We can't do it for you. You need to file it on your behalf for us to be able to take jurisdiction of it. You can request a hearing for any reason. We hope people reserve hearings for special cases. If your house is unique or you have a special argument, by all means, ask for a hearing. We'll take that hearing, we'll honor it. If you think your house is just not uniform, that's not a good reason for a hearing unless you have a really unique home. Then maybe you want to spell it out to the hearing officer that you could not find any comparables. Your house is unique for reasons X, Y, and Z, and you wanted to take a closer look at it. You would file the request for hearing on the website. There's in one of those boxes, on one of those screens, you would check request a hearing. So how's the decision reached? This is pretty important. So a lot of people have a misconception on this. They think that, well, if I live in the first district makes the decision. I wish it was that way. That'd be great because, obviously I'd cater to the first district because that's our district, and I want all the first district to have the lowest taxes. But that's not reality. It's not fair. So every appeal is heard by all three districts. Now, who gets that appeal first is randomized. So if you file, it could either be heard by the first, second, or third district first, and then the second district would look at it. They have to decide whether the first person who analyzed it did a good job. If they did a good job and they agree with it, it would move on to the third analyst in the rotation. And that third analyst could either agree or disagree. It really doesn't matter. If the first two analysts agree, the third analyst is kind of a wasted vote, call it. But we like all three analysts to look at them because there could be an error. So it's a chance really to catch errors more than anything. So even if I'm the third analyst and the first and second analyst already agreed on something, I'm going to look at it just to make sure that, first of all, they didn't make a mistake. Check their reasoning, check the data behind it, and then, decide whether I'm going to make a phone call or not. Sometimes the first and second don't agree, and then the third analyst is really important. They have to decide, do I agree with the first analyst? Do I agree with the second analyst? Or are they both wrong? And here's mine. In that case, when we have three different decisions, it usually gets escalated to the chief of staff. So that's when I'll take a look at it for our district, and the other chiefs of staff will take a look at it for the other district. So most common errors, it's really incomplete information, bad PIN numbers, paper complaints not signed. So those are the common problems. Also, if you file multiple appeals on the same property, people forget, they'll hire an attorney, then they'll hire Turk or one of those other companies, and then they forget their husband filed it also on them, and now there's 3 appeals for one property. It does happen, as crazy as it sounds. So try to keep it to 1 appeal for a property, just so we're clear. If that happened, we're always going to take the homeowner's appeal over anyone else's. We would tell the attorneys, sorry, they're not paying you. They appealed on their own. The assessor also does allow appeals. That is closed for this season. So we just had this slide on here. So cookcountyassessor.com. When you get those reassessment letters next year, you can file an appeal at the assessor's office. The exemptions is also an assessor responsibility. We listed them here, and you're going to have access to this slide deck. We'll provide it to the assessor in Hanover, so you can refer to this as well. This is also on the assessor's website. These are all the different exemptions that you may qualify for. Again, the Board of Review cannot do anything with exemptions. We can't honor them. We can't say, yes, you deserve them and give you credit for them. Purely an assessor action. So leave you with this. Remember, if you don't register a pre-file or do anything like that, your township is going to have a 30-day window. You got to get it in that 30-day window. Once you file it, the Board of Review is going to take anywhere from 18 to 16 weeks to review it. So be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. If you're registered, you're going to get an email notification that your decision is viewable. Any reductions that we grant are going to be reflected on your second installment property tax bill. But we will not increase your assessment. It's either going to remain the same or decrease. And you should not ever pay anyone to file your property tax appeals. So here's our contact information that I alluded to earlier. Our password reset information here. If anyone wants to take a screenshot of this, really handy to have. So we created this texting system. If you text the letters BOR to 74121, we will send you updates based on what townships are opening, closing, things like that. So 74121, text BOR. It's free to you. We pay for it. Don't worry about it. Again, here's that contact information. Several ways to get a hold of us. I think we're working on a TikTok and maybe an Insta in the future. So, we want to get those young homeowners too. Again, thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Assessor. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Yesenia. Those are part of our staff that came out tonight. And anyone reach out, our contact information is still out there. Everybody be safe, be well. I appreciate it.